Good Monday afternoon, everybody. I'm meteorologist Tim Pandages here with your tropical update, and today we've got a brand new named storm to talk about, and that is Lisa, a tropical storm that came out of PTC number 15 that was designated yesterday. Now we've got a named storm. Today is Monday, October the 31st, 2022. Last day of October, heading into November. Kind of seems odd still talking about tropical systems, but we are still technically in hurricane season, June 1st to November 30th, although November is the quietest month of the hurricane season, with only 5% of storms statistically developing within that month. But it's not without its fair share of hurricanes. 25 since 1850 have developed in the month of November, and a few have been major. That's Category 3, 4, or 5. You can see 2 Category 5s have developed, 2 Category 4s kind of spread out evenly across the Atlantic, a little more concentrated down in the Caribbean. That is a hot spot later on in the season. Here's our list for 2022. Lisa now checked off. Next up would be Martin or Nicole. Here's a look at infrared satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Lisa. Here are the stats on it. 40-mile-per-hour winds. To become a tropical storm, you need 39-mile-per-hour winds or greater. So a low-grade tropical storm at the moment, moving at a pretty quick speed to the west at 14 miles per hour. Its pressure steady at 1,003 millibars. Now I want to show you here what it looks like on water vapor imagery. This depicts where the dry air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere is. Dry air is detrimental to storm development or intensification. What's indicated by the rust color here in the yellow shades, that is very dry air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere directly to the west of where Lisa is heading. So it's heading into this dry air. But also what I've got pulled up here is the upper level wind pattern. And what this shows here, you see these little wind streams. Notice the spin here. This is a upper level anticyclone, an upper level area of high pressure. And this is beneficial to intensifying tropical storms because it allows the air to be evacuated to let the storm ventilate properly. So as Lisa moves into this area of upper level divergence, we're going to likely see it intensify. Although we're not looking or expecting any rapid intensification, but will likely become a hurricane before it makes landfall in Central America by Wednesday night. So it's got a small window here, another 48 hours, as going to be over the open warm waters of the western and central Caribbean. Now let's switch it up here on visible satellite imagery. This is what the satellites see with the sun up. We've got the spin of the atmosphere here. That is Lisa. You can kind of see the dry air impacting the system on its western side. Most of the convection is along it and to the south of the center of Lisa right now. But again, it's building off to the west. That dry air will likely impede it a little bit. But overall, everything else, all the other boxes are checked. We've got warm sea surface temperatures. That's never been a problem this season at all. Look at the Western Caribbean here in Central Caribbean. We've got water temperatures in the upper 80s to near 90. You only need 80-degree waters or warmer to support tropical development. On top of that, we've talked about this pretty much every video when we've had storms in the Caribbean. The Caribbean features some of the deepest, warmest water in the entirety of the Atlantic Basin. And what I mean by that is it's not just the skin of the ocean that's warm, like you saw in the upper 80s to around 90, but that warm water extends down to, in some cases, a couple hundred meters below the ocean surface. Why that benefits tropical systems is because when storms intensify, they start to mix up the ocean. They're violent systems. You get large waves, you get strong winds mixing up the ocean. That's something called upwelling. And when you get upwelling over just a warm skin of the ocean, you're upwelling or pulling up colder waters from a depth, and you end up depleting your warm energy source. When you've got deep warm water, you're upwelling continuously warm water, so you've got an endless supply of energy. And you can see where it's currently located, very warm waters, deep waters there, and it's heading into another pocket of high ocean heat content here that supports intensification just before it heads to making landfall near Belize and in Central America. Here's the official track from the National Hurricane Center. Strengthens it modestly over the next 24 hours, right up through Tuesday morning. We're up to 50-mile-per-hour winds, so a 10-mile-per-hour gain in sustained winds in about 24 hours, modest. And then as we get closer to landfall, as it moves over that pocket of very warm, deep waters, we see it intensify further, potentially all the way up to a Category 1 hurricane with winds at 75 miles per hour. Hurricane status starts at 74 miles per hour. So this will be a low-grade Category 1 hurricane, but still that does pack winds of over 75 miles per hour, some higher gusts than that. And of course, with tropical systems, you've got a lot of moisture, a lot of rainfall leading to landslide risks, flash flooding, and that sort of thing. So how do the models see things? Is everything kind of agreeing with the cone that the Hurricane Center's put out? Yes, it really is. Pretty much each computer model here has good consensus on a due west trajectory, blocking high off to the north, fronts coming on in, kind of keeping it out of the Gulf of Mexico, building it off towards the west and making landfall potentially in Central America, actually likely in Central America. And then if it does hold together, maybe it makes its way all the way out into the Eastern Pacific and tries to redevelop, taking advantage of still relatively good conditions for development there. How about the GFS ensemble? Again, this is the GFS model, run 30 different times. We have 30 members of this. Why do we need to run it 30 different times? Well, we tweak it a little bit, change the variables slightly to see if we get a different result. And even doing that, we've got very good consensus, taking it pretty much due west, in line with that cone from the National Hurricane Center. I talked about the tropical moisture, a lot of rain expected here. This is the GFS model rainfall forecast for the next 7 days. Notice Belize here getting some rainfall up in over 4 or 5, maybe 6 inches, a half foot of rain. Certainly not outside of the realm of possibility as this builds inland. As it's over land, it'll begin to rain itself out. Rain totals do drop off significantly farther inland. Here's how the modeling sees this as we go forward in time. By Tuesday and into Wednesday, we have potentially a hurricane here making landfall in northern Belize, Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico here. A consolidated storm here, not a really large system, but it brings a lot of rain and, of course, wind on into Central America by midweek. All right, that's the latest on Lisa. We'll continue to track it as it heads towards the west, towards Central America in the coming days. Again, landfall expected there Wednesday evening. Until next time, we'll have another video update tomorrow afternoon. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok at TimTalkWeather. Enjoy the rest of your Monday and happy Halloween.